a little bit of those. So I've got extra flowering, native flowering seeds if you want to pick them up afterwards. What we want to do is take advantage of this cold weather that we get and help all of these native seeds to grow. And this is a super cheap way of getting our seeds to grow. You can, by creating these little, this is an example of one that I've been using for about 4 years, of a little mini greenhouse. And I just put it in my garden plot, and essentially it doesn't really, I don't have to water until really we get a lot of foliage starting to grow. And then it's super easy to water. And I will show you how to do this.
I'm going to ask for a pause real second. I'm going to give you a personal mic so that we can hear you a little bit better. I think everyone at home will appreciate that.
Okay. Am I good to go?
One moment.
Oh my.
Okay. Now they can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So what is winter sowing other than giving the plants that cold period, also called stratification? I don't know if you've heard of that before, but a good number, certainly just about all of our native flowering plants need stratification. I'm getting an echo. How's that?
You hear yourself now?
Now I don't hear myself. Okay. All right. So, so cold stratification is not for most of your vegetables, although I have great luck putting my vegetables out using a hoop house, carrots and cabbages, broccoli, lettuces, spinach, radishes, things like that do just fine. Beets, peas. Let's go. Yep. And so if you don't know what to look for, like you're not sure if the plants, if you're a seed collector or if you like buying seeds and are into gardening, but here are a whole variety of terms to look for when trying to figure out if your seeds need a cold period. And like I said, I have something similar to this. I think this is a hula hoop. I'm not using hula hoops. I have PVC piping, but it's just a real simple system where I throw plastic over it, stick some rocks on the end. I have a 2x4 nailed the plastic attached to the sides so that it keeps it down so the wind doesn't blow it away. And then I can just roll it up, rest it on the top of the hoops, and then I can water when I need to. So when do you want to start winter sowing? Now is a great time. I'm going to start planting everything next week. And I'm also going to start all my vegetable plants like tomatoes that do not like the cold. I'm going to start growing all of those in my basement to get them ready, because that way when middle of May comes around, I've got nice, robust plants that have a nice deep root system, and they just take off. So what are some of the benefits? If you broadcast your seeds in the fall, and a lot of people do that, then if you get a heavy rain, you get a lot of wind, then your seeds have a good likelihood of just going down the gutter or getting buried too deeply. Most of the seeds, especially the ones that I gave you at the banquet, they don't even need to be covered with soil. Or it's a 1/16 of an inch of soil, which essentially means you're just going to pat them into the soil for them to grow. The other thing, if you start your seeds inside the house, then you have to go through kind of a complex process of hardening off your plants, where you get used to the regular intensity of sunlight and the difference in humidity. And a lot of people, you can lose 20 to 40% of your plants during the hardening off period. So if you start them outside, then you don't have to deal with this loss. And then if you're like me and you have absolutely no space in your house, this is ideal because you're just starting your seeds outside and you don't need anything extra other than whatever container you have access to and soil. So what kind of containers can you use? You can use anything that's opaque. I like to stick with materials that are taller because I want a deeper root base. Because a lot of plants, like say you really want to plant some poppies, they do not like to be transplanted. Carrots do not like to be transplanted, for example. But if they have a nice root base, you just, once you're done, you just take the entire block of soil with all those roots and all those plants and you plop it in the ground. What usually happens is the plants on the perimeter will likely die because their roots get damaged in the transfer, but all the others are going to survive. So milk jugs, some people like to use, these are like shoe totes, but they're pretty deep. And in this picture, let's see if we can turn down the light so you can see. This person has put little seedling pots in here. And I would suggest you just poke holes in the bottom, poke holes in the top, and plant in there. Because if you have seedlings in a little pot like this, then 3 or 4 weeks later, you have to repot it and then repot it. And that's a big pain. So, yes. So this way, there's no repotting. My favorite is to use cat litter jugs because you can make the base as deep as you want, depending on the kind of plant you want to start. And then you can use, you can use vinegar jugs. You can even use wiper fluid jugs, as long as you clean them out well. But don't use like olive oil or oil jugs because you won't be able to get that oil out, and that can interfere with the root system because it can end up coating the soil and then the roots, and then you don't get the oxygen exchange. All right, so the first step would be to clean your container, and which just means rinsing it out. I don't even think you need to use soap unless you had something, you know, your milk curdled or something gross and you don't want it to smell. The first thing to do is to cut in drainage holes before you cut this, so there's greater stability. I highly recommend that on the hand that's not using or holding the knife, that you have a nice thick glove. I learned that the hard way. Got 7 stitches in my finger. But, and the other thing to remember is not all bottoms are created equal. Sometimes, especially with milk jugs, you have high parts and low parts. You want to make sure that in the high parts, that's where you put your drainage holes. That way water doesn't pool in that space and you don't drown your roots. Yes?
Or you can cut it like that, and then you do it, then you cut the opposite direction.
Yes.
So you would go stab, stab.
Yes, and that's the other thing. You probably can't tell, but there are 6 X's on here. And I will have to do that because of the soil being in here last year. It pushed the plastic together. So if you make holes from one direction and then you reinforce it or use like an old corkscrew from the other, then you create a solid opening. Because this... Yep. All right. And then online, there are all these people who think it's really important for drying a straight line around whatever container. This person's using a coffee mug so that it is even. All you need to worry about is that you don't cut 360 degrees. That wherever the handle is, and you could cut higher up, you can still create that hinge. So normally, when you are going to be planting seedlings or seeds, you would use just seedling mix. But because I'm going to leave these plants to grow, and I'm going to plant them probably around Mother's Day, what I always do is I start with soil from the ground, and I have really heavy soil, lots of clay. So I mix in some perlite, which is a mineral.
You just buy that, or you buy that?
I buy this. You can get 8-quart bags at Home Depot or at Lowe's, and so it has. It's not gonna. You can see how
Right.
clay my soil is, but
The perlite lightens it.
right. And what you want is the perlite, so it keeps it fluffy. This was underneath the snow. I had to dig it out of a bigger pot when I was mixing everything, but it still holds together. It's still a lot heavier, but the perlite is going to provide airspace. It's going to provide space for all those tender roots to grow. And then, and the other thing is, and this goes for trees and other stuff, is you want some of the soil to be like the soil that they're going to be living in, because it's a shock to go from a soilless seeding mix to whatever soil you have in your yard. And so I usually add probably more than this. I'll probably add like 2 inches of this kind of soil, and then I just gently pat it down. I don't squish it down, but you want to get rid of some of the airspace, because if your roots grow into a space that's all air, then it's not going to be able to get in contact with the water. And then I use this stuff, and this is soil-less, and it is just, when you push it together, it just falls apart again. So this is beautiful stuff. I have great success with this. This is the seed starting medium. It is coconut hulls or coconut core. And see, even if you compress it, it just falls apart. This is what you want for starting your seeds. I don't know if you... And you know all about this.
I know. Right? Is that Happy Frog or what is it? Is it Fox Farm?
No, it's Lewis Rogers mix. It's the coconut core and perlite, and then vermiculite. It's all nice and airy, and when you compress it, it falls apart again. So that's the sign of a good soilless mixture. And then you just add to whatever depth you want. And like I said, I find that given the temperature and the fact that we're in a drought right now, having your roots as long as possible is going to be a lot easier to keep alive and for the plant to get established. And then I just gently pat it down. And the seeds, I'll just use some of these. So these, this is actually a mixture of all the seeds that were in the packet that I gave you guys at the banquet. And I sow it heavily. I put a lot of seeds.
You're going to tell us these seeds are beautiful flowers and that we're going to just lighten our hearts as we go out and look at our plants?
And
Can you tell us that?
your honeybees and the native bees in your yard will be very happy.
That's all I care about. So I just want to make sure that not only do my bees are happy, that I'm happy.
Did you already put dirt over it? Because I want to see how this.
I'm not going to put any dirt over it. So I just sprinkle them in, and you can see like these are the Mexican hat, and I'm going to leave them just like that.
Pretty coreopsis.
Yep. And so this.
The seeds on top, you just kind of pat them down and shake them?
That's right. So I pat it down gently so that there are no, or not no, but few large air pockets. And the soil is already nice and hydrated, fully wet. And I just put them on top.
Oh, right on top. Like they just fell off the plant.
Yes, exactly. Flaxseed doesn't need to be covered at all. I think everybody's packets had flaxseed. But you can see the seeds are just sitting right on top, and I have pressed them into the soil so that they're in contact with the moisture in the soil. And then the biggest problem I had to learn was what to use to label my plants. Because the first winter, I used Sharpies on the outside, and the snow and the rain and the sun had worn it off, and I had no idea what I had except, by identifying it by their adult leaves. So I just use a pencil. Pencil works so much better than Sharpies. I guess a laundry pen would also work well. And I label the inside of the box with whatever it is. And you can see that last year I just wrote on the front sunflower in pencil, and it's still there.
Crayon or grease marker?
Oh, yes?
Yes.
All right. Crayon, grease marker, or pencil. So it's labeled, and then it really doesn't matter what kind of tape you use. If you use something like Gorilla Tape, you will rip your container apart trying to get that tape off. So this is lab tape, because I used to work in a lab, and I just seal around the edges.
Where are you putting this at once you get it all ready? Are you putting it in your windowsill, or are you putting it outside? Where you go?
I'm going to put it outside. I'm going to put it on the north side of my house.
So in the north side?
North side, you want it on the north or the east side, out of the wind. You don't want them to get too much sun, because you don't want them to germinate too soon. So you want them ready when the rest of the environment is ready for them to be taken out of these containers.
So they have some cold weather.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and our native plants here in the Great Basin, they're going to need to have that cold temperature. So you have the cold temperature, which sets off a series of chemical reactions, and then there's moisture, and the seed gets ready to do its thing, and it has all the energy it needs to germinate, and then it's going to wait for that reoccurring for when it gets warm again. Some seeds, like flax, they need a little bit of sunlight. So it's going to be dependent upon not only the temperature, but the number of hours of sunlight the seeds are exposed to.
How moist are you having the soil?
So I would have my soil a little bit more moist than this on average, but the rest of it was frozen. Yep. And a lot of people will say, oh, you got to take this off so rain can get in. It's small apertures. Not much rain is going to get in. I keep it closed to keep the heat in. And then I just use a watering wand on the real gentle rain setting and just give it a quick spritz of water. And then when it's warm enough, but it's still chilly at night, I'll crack these open. And at night, I'll just close them. I won't worry about putting the tape back on around them. No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Now, I take it you have a collection of these over the years.
Yes.
Okay.
Are they for sale?
No, they are not.
Is it, should you have a frosted or could they be clear?
They could be clear.
They can be clear.
Yeah, you just don't want like the real, you want them at least a little bit opaque, but if it's like a dark green or the intense white where you're not getting enough light in, but this lets in enough light. And they do really well. When I first start to harden them off or getting ready to put them in the ground, I will leave the tops open in the morning. So they get the morning sunlight. So because of a lower angle in the sky, there's less radiation coming in. So you do have to think about that just a little bit.
Now, I'm kind of curious as to how you transplant them from that to the ground.
Okay, so what I do is I don't water them for a couple of days before I'm getting ready to transplant them. And that way the roots there's a lot of plants that are going to be in one little container.
Yes.
And which is great because when you're planting flowering plants, it's good to have a cluster of them because then they shade the ground. Then, so the roots are all through the soil. The soil's a little dry, so it's more likely to stay together. Plus, I put in dirt that was mixed with a little bit of the perlite. So that's going to hold the structure together. And it's kind of like with a pan and a cake in a pan. I put it upside down,
Put them all together in one spot, right, or break it apart?
I always put them just together.
Okay.
Because
you have a variety of your plants, right?
Right, so that was a whole variety.
Okay.
But you could, in these packets here, you have little baggies full of seeds. And so each container could be all one plant. And then, so I just set my hand out around all the stems. I invert it. I've already got my hole dug. And then I gently set it in. And it works really well.
Do you find they reseed them? Or do you have to do this every year?
No. So they do reseed. I don't have to do it every year, but it depends on the kind of plant. Right. So things like Rocky Mountain bee plant and cosmos, they will seed themselves really nicely. Whereas if you want something like I'm blanking on the word. It's not mums. Not gerbera. But anyway, some of them don't seed as well.
You're not deadheading them. You are actually letting them seed and then deadheading them. You know, when you cut them off the thing, but they don't grow back. They actually have to come back for seed.
Those do. Yeah. But if you were going to, like I also planted a bunch of brown-eyed Susans and echinacea or the purple coneflower, and they're perennials.
They'll come back.
Yeah, so I leave the seed heads for the birds to eat all winter long and in the spring, and then as new growth starts coming out, then I trim everything back. Yeah, so it depends on whether or not you have an annual or perennial, if you have to keep doing this.
And what you gave us, are they annuals or perennials?
Some of them are, so you got blue flax. Yeah, so flax would be a perennial. Cosmos and some of the other ones, like the penstamones, I think, are going to self-seed. So, yeah, but we could talk more about that if you got specific questions about the different seeds I provided. And then I just wanted to share with you one other method, super easy, cost efficient, and it saves space. Huh?
I've seen this on the internet.
Yes.
Very cool.
So I'm going to try this for the first time this year with things like all my squashes and eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, and materials. I use this to paint one of my hives, but this was just packing material, was something that came in that I ordered. So heavy construction paper, bubble wrap would work well, but I wouldn't use something like this. So a lot of materials come in this plastic. It's real thin sheeting, but it's real friable. It won't withstand much in the way of friction, water, or sunlight. And then you're just adding tiny particles of plastic
Microplastics to your soil.
to your soil. So this I would say do not use.
It really breaks down in sunlight, so you really do want to avoid that.
Yeah. So bubble wrap, this will probably be around with the cockroaches. I like to use stuff that you don't have to worry about, and I could just stick it in my compost pile. So with the seed snail method, you're going to then take your soilless seedling mixture, and you're going to layer it on. And you want to layer it on thick, 2 to 3 inches, because you want enough soil for all those roots to grow into. And then you just roll it up like a cinnamon roll or something. And you're going to have soil that falls out on both sides. Don't worry about it, because you can always pack it in. And you don't want it to do it tightly. You're not trying to like stick your sleeping bag into a stuff sack or anything. So you want the roll to be fairly loose, because again, you want to provide that space for the roots to grow.
You moisturize the soil before you.
Yes. Yes, good point. So I always have the soil fully hydrated before using it, because that way you don't have to start watering until later, and maybe by that time the seeds have already started to germinate, and you don't wash them away when you water.
This isn't soil, is it?
It's the perlite, vermiculite, and
Growing medium.
growing medium. Yes. Sorry to confuse you. And then in this example here, someone is putting them in a large tub, and then they're putting them outside. So if you don't have a cat and you don't have these containers, you don't drink milk, you just don't have a container, but you have a bunch of packing material, you could always put your seeds, right, and just lay them on the top and stick them in another container that you could put outside. And you could do the same type of winter sowing. I'm going to try using this under grow lights for stuff like my tomatoes and squashes. And then if you have success, it should just be lovely. I mean, this looks like zucchini. They've got herbs here growing. And then when you're ready to plant them out into your garden bed, you've got the soil is nice and warm. You're just going to have some, as you can see, that the roots have grown into each other a little bit, so you're going to have some root damage. But hopefully, right, if your roll is wide enough, and you can make it whatever length you want. This is about 8 inches. And so that would give 8 inches of roots. And so a little bit of, gently pulling them apart, maybe having to cut them, they should survive the transplanting really well.
Or if you have too many, just snip off the ones you don't.
Right.
Just cut them off.
So you could just, cut them off and then plant the whole thing down in the ground. And then you don't have to worry about the root system.
So you unroll it and you've got that hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to have your plot already pre-dug and prepared. So any questions? Any other questions? So those are the 2 methods for winter sowing. This I've been using for a long time. The only time I have problems is when I use older seeds that are just past their prime.
This is wonderful, because then you don't have to worry quite as much about damaging roots. And you've got a decent root length instead of a little teeny pots that you buy
Can you
from the...
repeat what you said?
Yes. So the advantage of this method, again, over either buying a little potted seedling from a big box store or something, is that you've got these really long, well-established roots.
Instead of those little teeny pots where the roots are all root bound. Yeah,
Yes.
This is genius.
So the last thing I wanted to show you was how to make your own soilless seedling mix. And I did forget one thing. I wanted to show you what it looks like when you buy coconut coir. It comes in blocks, and then you add a little bit of water, and it expands 150%. Yes?
And Costco, the last couple of years, has sold these bricks. They're about this big. And that provides you with so much of, the coconut coir. Yeah, so if you have a Costco membership, watch for that here in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent.
I bought some on Amazon. It'll ship right to your door.
And you don't have to stand in line.
He's full for
A
Amazon.
lot of the nurseries have those. If you go to the nurseries, and then they also got a different mix. It's peat moss, vermiculite, perlite. They do have the coconut or only for greenhouses if you go to. The other thing also, lots of times you say you just put seeds on. Lots of times when we do it, if you ever see how much seeds we put in greenhouses. When we actually plant one flat, we'll plant a flat that's got about 200 seeds in it. We like to put a small layer, a thin, small vermiculite over the seeds. And the other thing, the plastic containers, we actually use them down there for my bake, and if you use a milk jug within 2 years, those things just get brittle.
Yes, the milk jugs are thin enough that the UV radiation will break them down. But the cat litter containers last
this year's
a long
been
time.
interesting. Our greenhouses down there, we had a dry spout. Our greenhouses, if you don't ventilate it, like that thing there, it'll get to 80 to 100 degrees if you don't open that cap out. If it's 70, 80 degrees outside,
yes,
it'll get to be 100 degrees inside that container right there, and you will burn your plants. You need to open it up if it's hot.
That's why
So-
you have it on the north side, so you don't face the sun. Heating it up.
yeah. And then by mid to late April, I've taken the caps off. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, you do need to let the hot air have a place to go out. But by then, I've also taken the tape off so air can escape out the sides. So the perlite and vermiculite, they're going to be really important for providing a little airspace if your soil is super dense. The vermiculite also helps retain water, which is nice. It has a different water release rate than the coconut coir does. And I strongly suggest that you don't use peat or sphagnum moss because it is a non-renewable, well, technically it's a renewable resource, but it takes a very long time for that vegetative degradation to occur to actually get what we call peat moss. Whereas coconut coir, this is like almost limitless because everything that we like to eat that has coconut in, you got all that material, those husks or whatever you call it on the outside of the coconut. And the great thing about the coconut coir is it's water, it doesn't have a high surface tension. So I don't know if you ever noticed, you buy a plant, it's mostly peat moss, and you try to water it and all the water drains out. And you think, oh, great, I just watered my plant. And then you come back 2 hours later and the plant's all wilted. And it's because it sheds the water. And the coconut coir has a larger surface area, and so it's able to absorb water within seconds rather than within hours. That's why when you go to a nursery and you see they have like the little kiddie pools or something, they have plants just soaking in the pool, is because it takes a long time once that soil or that the peat moss, once it finally fully dries out, it takes a very long time to hydrate it. So it's more energy efficient. It is better for the environment. It will be easier to work with as a gardener.
And you get healthier roots with it, because you're not drying, shocking the roots.
Right. So that's another important consideration. You don't ever want your tender roots of these seedlings to ever dry out, because they go through the plant goes through a physiological change, which then shuts down growth because now it's in survival mode. And if you keep an even moisture level as well as somewhat temperature level, then that's going to facilitate faster growth. And if you wanted any additional resources about any of this stuff, here are all the websites that I use to supplement the presentation.
And if you're worried about making that stuff, there's a store on 17th South. It's actually about 1550. It's called Moonlight.
Moonlight.
Yeah, it's I'm not going to say it's a marijuana shop, but what it is a lot of them go there to get the best potting soil there is. If you go in there, they're going to have it pre-made.
Oh, okay.
It's about almost exactly what you make.
Okay.
1550 South and what?
State Street,
Okay.
across from the old South High. It's called Moonlight. It's on the west side of the street.
Okay.
And they have a product called it's from Fox Farms, and it's called Happy Frog.
Happy Frog.
Yeah.
I've heard of Happy Frog.
Happy Frog is very, very good.
Yeah.
For us pumpkin growers, it's the best.
Okay. Nope. It's all gardening. We're not harvesting yet.
That was good.
Yes.
What are the positives and negatives about putting ashes from your wood-burning stove or your fireplace on soil for your garden?
Alkaline versus pH, and pH is high because if you put char on our soil, you're just gonna. Our soil is about 8.2. You want it to be 7, so it's neutral. And ashes are gonna raise your pH level.
Get more basic, yeah,
And
or
that's a good
alkaline.
thing?
That is not a good one.
No, it's a bad thing.
That is.
Yes, the back east where they grow blueberries and stuff, put as much fire stuff as you can out on the soil. But in Utah, it's not good. You can fix that. Biochar is excellent for the soil. You have to charge it for lower the pH. Make sure that nutrients in there. Then the second nutrients are nutrients.
How do you charge it?
Ashes out of the fire on top. The biochar.
So what is biocharging?
What is it?
Yeah, like you just said, if you charge the...
High temperature charcoal, especially cooked at high temperature, drive off everything else with the carbon itself. So it's basically just charcoal, but it's made at very high temperature.
Yes,
It's
okay.
very pure. So it's chemically intensely reactive, which can be very good for your plants or very bad for them, depending on how you apply it. But I make it, so.
So you have like an outdoor oven where you heat it? Cool.
You're making your own charcoal.
Yeah, I make it.
I have a son that
I
lives
have some
in.
spares, if I try something.
All
I have
right.
a son that lives in Sanpete County, out in the country, and he got an old bathtub. He fills it full of wood, sets it on fire. When it gets really gone, then he has a piece of sheet metal that he throws over top to smother it, and then he runs it through his chipper, and it just really then puts that on his soil, and it really makes it great.
Wow. All right.
We should all move to San Pete.
Is he up by the turkey farms?
By the marijuana farm. He's a little ways, just down the street from the marijuana farm. And it is an actual marijuana farm.
Legal.
Legal. Yeah.
So I realized the seeds that I handed out, and a lot of the seeds that are here are teeny tiny. And so what I brought with me, and I have some little baggies, and you can do this after the meeting if you are interested, but I brought some sand that you could mix with your seeds, and then instead of having these tiny little seeds that are sticking to your fingers, they're mixed with the sand, and then you can just sprinkle that over whatever method you want to use to plant them. And if you run into problems or you have questions, feel free to contact me. All right, that's it.
Is there more, or is this all? That's the meeting.
That concludes the meeting.
Oh, okay.